Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AIM Impact on Your Health. AIM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AIM Impact on Your Health is heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AIM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and we encourage you to call in to join in. Folks, we are in top doc summer mode. Top 20 alternative medical doctors throughout the country gathered in Phoenix not too long ago. A book has been the outgrowth of that gathering. Each and every doctor wrote a chapter in the book. I was fortunate enough to be included in that 20. But I've been making a pledge to bring to you every one of those docs, and we're going to do that today. I guess for an intro, I've had plenty of reverends that would like to have been called doctor, but I've never had a doctor that liked to be called reverend. You're going to see what I mean when we get with Dr. Charles Schwengel, a doctor of pastoral science and medicine. You'll see what that play on words has to do with what he does with respect to a very ominous disorder called cancer, but how he talks about it and how he says you correct it is something I think is going to be a brand new message for you, and hope you enjoy our time with Dr. Schwengel this morning. If in the process of talking to him, you want to call in to ask a question or make a comment, that number, of course, will be 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. Dr. Charles Schwengel, we are guests today. Now, the rest of the month will be go along at a pretty fast pace. On Friday, we're going to introduce a brand new line of, the company's called Beresha, and their pledge is to take care and help those who have difficulty with carbohydrate metabolism. That means you, the diabetic. That means you, the pre-diabetic. That means you, the obese. Anyway, we'll launch it with you on Friday. Hope you stick with us, and don't forget a tasting coming up here in August. We'll talk about that a lot on Friday. The next Monday, another one of the top docs, Dr. Nicholas Meyer, a dentist, a biological dentist, will be our guest. Then far out into the 23rd, Lee Cowden. Dr. Lee Cowden will be back after spending a time with us in the month of June. Asked to return. He wants to talk about detoxification and cancer, and that was his presentation in his chapter in the top 20 alternative medical doctors book, and I enjoyed when I heard it out in Phoenix, and I think I'm going to enjoy allowing you to hear it as he presents it to you today. So as it stacks up, that's how our month is going along. With a couple of other open dates, I promise to fill them with another top doc, and I'll let you know as I do. Eye treatment programs. We've got just about a little over 2 weeks to go. And on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, we'll have our July eye treatment program, our 3-day program, a la Dr. Ed Conrad, who initiated these programs literally 12 years ago. We've taken over since it's been 1 year anniversary this month, where we've been offering the programs each and every month to a select group of people who, rather than traveling to Florida to be treated by the Great One himself, have decided to do it more locally here with us. Our results are as good as Dr. Conrad's, and he's involved with every single case anyway. If you think you'd like to be a part of this, meaning that you have certain eye diseases, and especially the retinal diseases, the one that involve things like macular degeneration or glaucoma or diabetic retinopathy, these three in particular have no place to go with respect to conventional treatment because, quite honestly, there is no conventional treatment. There's nothing more than watchful for monitoring, and who in the heck wants that? Anyway, there can be and there will be a reversal of these vision losses with the eye treatment program. Give us a call here, 724-942-3002, and we'll have Sarah, that you want to ask for, Sarah, to guide you to get you into this program 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. We need your records and a whole bunch of time to send them down to Ed and the like. Speaking of Ed, I was looking on the website this morning. You know, he's on his pilgrimage to the Camino de Santiago, the road to Santiago, where he started out right at the border of France and Spain. He's walking across the northern coastline of Spain, and he's on day 23 of a 500-mile walk, a little caminata, as they say in Spanish. He's on day 23. Yesterday, on day 22, as I report to you, he claimed he had 145 miles to go of his 500-mile journey. Today, he is setting out of a town called Molina Seca, and Molina Seca, it's like ground pepper, dried pepper, something like that. Anyway, and he ends up at the Cathedral of Santiago in Compostela, where supposedly St. James has been entombed. He's doing this all in the name and recognition of awareness of macular degeneration. He's spreading the word. He's reported back to us. Hopefully we can have an update by him on Friday. We'll try to squeeze that in right at the beginning of the show before we get to the Beresha launch. And I'll keep you posted as time moves on with that. Other things going on around here, let's just say ozone yesterday I did a podcast with Sven Hosford. Spent about 45 minutes with him. It was I think it's on YouTube. If you want to hear more about ozone and me being interviewed by Sven, I think that's where I would guide you. Just dial up ozone and Dr. Courtney and Sven Hosford, and I think on the YouTube that's what should come up. Anyway, I enjoyed doing it, and more about it more about ozone that is as time marches on. The Ozone Express is fully engaged. It is pulled out of the station. If you want to jump on board, please go ahead. Whatever condition may ail you, whether that happens to be systemic or localized pain problems, as ozone seems to be doing the trick, and I promise to bring you more testimonials from patients of ours that are passing through this particular phase of their treatment and want to talk to you. They just chomping at the bit to share with you their experience, and I'm chomping at the bit to allow them to do it. Anyway, more on ozone as time moves on. So let's do this. I'm going to take a short break. In the interim, hopefully we'll be connecting with the Reverend Dr. Charles Schwengel. We're going to find out about that Reverend connection. It's a very unique level of respect here and what it entitles him to do. That's how we're going to start our conversation, talking to Dr. Schwengel when we return. Be right back.
You become confused.
All right, we got them. Give me a few.
Okay.
Seems that every time you turn on the television.
Where?
Here it is.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health. Heard here in KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney with you today on a Wednesday morning version of the show. We are in top doc summer mode. 20 top alternative medicine doctors met not too long ago in Phoenix, Arizona. They were selected countrywide for their contribution to alternative medicine. And a book emerged from it. But that little conference out there allowed me to meet each and every one of these gentlemen and ladies, and I was gracefully accepted by them when I asked them if they would come and spend some time with us to talk to our listeners about their message. In every case, they said absolutely, and today we get with another one of our fine top 20 doctors. We go back to Arizona, so many of the doctors actually practiced there to begin with. And we're dealing today with Dr. Charles Schwengel has 20 years of experience in Arizona as both an osteopathic physician and surgeon, and as a homeopathic medical doctor. Now, get a load of this now. He is a fully licensed by the Pastoral Medical Association as a doctor of pastoral science and medicine. Now, as I said in our lead-in today, I know plenty of reverends that like to be called doctor, but I know of no doctor that likes to be called reverend. We're going to get to that issue first once we introduce him and say hello. Good morning, Dr. Schwengel. Thanks for coming aboard today.
Well, good morning, sir, and thank you, too. Happy to be here.
Well, Dr. Schwengel, and I do mean that was a very unusual request. I think it's a great place for us to start today because it says so much about you and what I know about you. The fact that you are now in the pastoral medical field as opposed to where you began, which is in the osteopathic field. And I think a little time allotted to set the stage for why may be very helpful for our listeners. Why don't you take it for a moment, Doctor?
Well, sure. It's a very important topic, and I'll tell you why. You use the word alternative in relation to medicine. Everybody talks about alternative medicine. Well, the only reason that it's called alternative medicine is that most doctors don't use it. So what that translates to in terms of the public's access to this kind of thing is that the medical licensing boards and all of the control groups, the government control, sets the standards for what means medical care, what kind of techniques, what kind of services, what kind of products, what kind of drugs you have access to. And for the most part, most of the state medical boards and most of the doctors that people encounter are not allowed to practice natural medicine.
Well, that's so true. Yeah.
A gigantic problem. So what's happened here is that some years ago, a group of very bright people got together, including lawyers as well as many doctors and alternative practitioners, and they said, we're going to form a private membership association. And inside the private membership, you can do things. They can issue licenses to practice. Patients have access, patients being members of this association, and they also provide the same kind of things that state medical boards do. They issue what their scope of practice is. They have a possibility for making complaints. If you have a problem with the doctor, they've got a court of jurisdiction that reviews those kind of things and helps protect the public, which is exactly the same thing that medical licensing boards do. So now, when you become a member of the association, you're out from under the control of the state medical boards and all of the agencies that have anything to say about how it is that doctors practice medicine. That's a wonderful freedom to have, and it's wonderful privacy as well.
A different set of rules created under this rubric of a special organization that has membership, and if you enter into this as a member, you are allowed to do essentially what you want to do to yourself, for yourself, by others that you designate to do it to yourself, and the state medical boards have nothing to say about it. Is that right, Doc?
That's true.
What?
There's also an and to that, and there is a limit, and you pretty much limit it to natural medicine therapies. You couldn't do regular prescription drugs, or in the case of cancer, chemotherapy, under this particular license. They want you to do natural things. Well, wouldn't you know, we have natural bodies. Doesn't it make sense that nature provides everything we need? We just have to be smart and wise about how to begin to incorporate nature's resources to be healthy.
Well, that word nature, it keeps coming up with you. It should be emblazoned on your chest. In fact, it's emblazoned everywhere that you go, certainly on your website that I've been taking a look at. And let's start out with, may be a gut-wrenching blow to many listening to us right now, but you espouse, and you certainly can defend this this quote, which is, cancer is a natural process. And boy, I think many listeners will, having heard that for the first time, be very whimsical about that, but it sets the stage for a new definition of cancer and a new approach to the treatment of it. Why don't you talk about why you feel that this is a natural process?
That's a pretty big question. But
yeah.
we'll do our best to address that. And I agree. In my findings, let's think about this for a minute. We live in natural bodies, and everything that happens inside our body is a natural reaction to life and what happens around us. And of course, it has a big matter on food and the things that we eat and the things we're exposed to and the toxins. So when we start to develop cancer, it's a symptom. Like almost everything else that happens in the body, that's a warning sign, a symptom of something deeper. The development of tumors or the changes that we eventually diagnose and call cancer is a symptom. It's a warning sign that something in the life is out of balance. Something in your life is toxic. Well, what it means in the terms of cancer, because it's pretty advanced kind of a symptom, is that there's a certain kind of a stress going on. There's a natural, let me say this differently, the balance that we have in life has become imbalanced. The stress, some form of stress, and we're all designed by nature to handle stress in certain ways. That's the way it has to be. But when stress becomes distress, it becomes too much, then we begin to physically change and grow the tumors in the organs, and it becomes diagnosed as cancer. And that's just a reaction to what's happening in your life. And that's why I said it's a natural phenomenon. Cancer is actually meant to help protect you.
Wow. Just think of it that way, huh?
It's not malicious. Nature's not trying to get out to get you. Cancer does not have a life or a mind of its own. So there you go.
Yeah, well, there it is. It's exposed for everyone to see right now. And as I said, it's gut-wrenching. It's a blow to the stomach. If you're suffering from cancer, you probably never looked at it in that way before. Is this a difficult concept? Because you're meeting people with cancer all the time. I mean, this is what you're known for. And they usually have come to you in this fight. And I know you don't like that term, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about why there is no way to win if you're in a fight. I think that you explained that very well. But can people make this transition from fight to natural in an easy way or not?
Well, let's put it this way. For every form of cancer there is somebody, maybe many somebodies, who have recovered from it. All of them, 100%, have done this. In some way, they have found a way to resolve the stress, turn their life around, and then the cancer goes away. So we all know somebody or know of somebody who has recovered from some kind of cancer, and it's not because they did treatment or because they won the fight. It's because at some level they were able to turn around this kind of stress. In addition to many other things they do, of course, the diet, the detox, and the cleansing, and the treatments, and like that. But you don't win a fight with cancer if that's all you do is fight.
What a powerful statement that is. And by the way, the word power, you claim you have it in a plaque in your office. Certainly it comes right at you when you turn off your website. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain what that website is. But how about this series of quotes? Because I'd sure like for you to explain to my listeners that this is sort of like your credo, I think. And the quote goes something like this: "Nothing is so gentle as great power, and nothing is so powerful as great gentleness." What powerful words they are if you just dissect that a bit. And it seems to be your battle cry, your mantra. Could you explain to our listeners why you carry this as a plaque wherever you go? And it's wherever you are. This particular phrase keeps coming up, and I think it says a lot about you.
Well, that's true. When we talk about power, this is a homeopathic concept. And you mentioned Arizona, and so many of the doctors doing alternative type work are in Arizona. That's because Arizona has a homeopathic licensing board. And I'm a member of that licensing board. I've been for many years. What that means is that power and strength are different concepts. What we're interested in here is the power to heal. And when you talk about strength, that has to do with how strong a drug is. Like aspirin's a good example. It's regular strength and extra strength and like that. Strength does not mean healing. Nature has the power to heal. What we're interested in is the ability to bring about the desired result, which is making your body heal in whatever way it takes. So that's power. And nature in healing is always gentle. There's nothing fight about healing, and there's power, great power, in the simplest little things. But they're not strong. You don't need strength to have ability to heal. So that's what that means.
Well, so then it's in fact the gentleness of nature itself that has the great strength and is able to overcome this natural reaction to stress that brought you to this place anyway to begin with. Mm-hmm. It wasn't anything sinister, and it is able to be reversed as once you're able to better contend with those stresses and alleviate yourself of those stresses. Then your body should be able to get back to the natural processes as opposed to the transformed process of a cancer. Am I getting this at all?
You've got it very, very well. So simple to remember that we live in natural bodies. So the body made by nature has to work in harmony with nature. When you're out of harmony, you start to get symptoms. So the answer there isn't to turn to artificial and synthetic drugs and techniques and procedures. The answer is to turn back to nature and let nature do the gentle healing thing that nature does.
Let me ask you this. I already tried to ask it once. I'm going to try it again. Knowing how, especially most of my listeners must be programmed, the majority of people in the country are programmed to think fight when it comes to cancer. And your approach is absolutely the opposite of that. And so people who come to you with cancers engaged in the fight, is it easy to turn the fight switch off and get them in tune and in harmony with this natural approach, or is it a battle for them?
Well, for the most part, it's a battle. And the reason for that, I think, is most of us are so, I'm going to say the word brainwashed, by how much we hear this term. You got to fight cancer. Every time you turn around,
yeah. You
hear in the media about fighting cancer. And of course, when we make our contributions, which is a wonderful and generous thing to do, contributions for the fight. But that still promulgates that feeling. So when somebody in the treatment and they're in the fight, that's the way they think, only because that's the way everybody around them tells them to think. When I encounter these people and I say, you have to start to think for yourself, it takes a little while usually, and I have to be gentle about that to encourage the idea that maybe fighting isn't the best way to recover and to heal from your cancer. There's a natural pathway and a process to do that. All we have to do is pay attention to it.
You know, I think of your presence in that room in Phoenix, and I tell my listeners, you are a large man. You're well north of 6 foot. How far north are you of 6 foot?
Well, I'm 6'3" on a good day.
On a good day?
Sure.
Your presence just comes at you as, you know, being larger than life, but your mannerisms are so gentle and so kind. I think you're the right person to sell this message. I really do, because of your stature. Do you ever think about that? Because I'm just thinking about it right now, how large you are and how the message is such a tiny one, but with massive repercussions and potential benefit. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention it because it is a dichotomy that actually shows itself to be actually in tune with one another. I think I said that right. Let me ask you this now.
And the reason for that is I have the confidence because I see it and I have a way of testing it, and I have had 3 years, maybe more, of opportunity to work with this kind of concept, and I have extremely high confidence because of the results that I see.
Talk to us about some of those Talk to us some of those patients that have come to you in the fight. They're transitioning to get to the natural approaches to getting the stresses relieved, and then maybe some successes and how frequent the successes occur once you see the transition. I'd really be interested in hearing about some specific examples. You have any?
Well, let's pursue that just a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
Maybe some basic background. Let's go back to the natural body and the stress concept. What that really means is that the body is under the control of the brain. Every part of the body is under the control of some part of the brain. It's pretty easy to think that. But then you ask the question, what controls the brain? Well, I'm not quite sure where my mind is, but I'm pretty sure I've lost it once or twice. So what happens in the mind affects the brain, which affects the body. So now we have what we can call a mind-to-body connection. And that's one of the cornerstone things about what alternative medicine is all about. And you see that when you look at alternative field, everywhere you look, the mind, spirit, body kind of connection. And I think that's what we're getting at here. So the kind of stress we refer to, when stress becomes distress and your body begins to develop tumors, happens because of that connection between mind and body. Something has happened in the mind to create stress at that level, which causes the body to start to create growth of tumors. And that's what happens. So to pursue that a little bit further, there are different levels of the brain in different developmental areas which control different parts of the body and affect different parts of that mind-body connection. Well, with just a little bit of looking into that and a little bit of research, it becomes pretty easy to know what parts of the brain control what parts of the body. And when you do that, now we can tell what levels of the brain are controlling what parts of the body, and you can put together a plot, something like a storyline. Are you with me so far?
So far, I'm there. So
okay. So let's think about 3 basic layers in the brain. The first layer is probably the most basic. Most basic means it has to do with survival. How do we function in the world and survive and reproduce? Survival means eat and air and water and reproduction. So there's a layer of the brain that controls those organs in the body. And those organs mean the digestive system, mouth, stomach, colon, all that. And it controls the reproductive system. And to a point, it controls kidneys, which is water level. So there's another layer of the brain that controls the body, which is muscles and bones and blood and all the organs.
Okay.
And there's another layer that, for the best way I think to say it, is it has to do with how we get along with each other in the world. So when we have a certain kind of a stress, a good word for this is interpret. How do we interpret the kind of stress that we might have? And a good example of this is a colleague friend of mine woke one day and found his wife she died during the night on the floor. And he said, well, I'm just going to miss that woman, but life and death is part of the natural cycle of things, and that's just the way it is. And, if that was me, my wife, I'd have lost it and got really excited and just broken down.
Sure.
So there's a similar experience, but different people can interpret it differently. So that happens in life in so many ways. We all have experiences, but it's how we interpret that experience that creates problems for us. The way we interpret things is based on how you grow up, family, culture, social, society, school, peers, like that. How do we think we're supposed to act or react? So when we encounter something that becomes a stress, that becomes a distress, that's what creates a problem. So I'm going to work backwards just a little bit here. When we know what the diagnosis is and where the tumor is, then we know what the plot is and why the tumor is there. Now, the details behind the story are as unique as there are people on the planet, but the reason it's there is evident because of where it is.
Really?
By talking about there,
really?
Big question mark in everybody's minds. I don't mean to do that. It's like this. When you have a tumor in the digestive system, you can be sure that there's anger behind it. Anger somewhere about somebody or some kind of a situation.
I see where you're going with this now.
Okay.
Okay.
When you see tumors in the lungs, that has either to do with fear or with grief, sadness and sorrow, or I'm afraid. Or when you see it in breast, that has to do with nurturing. That's what breast is about, nurturing the family, or sometimes nurturing a relationship that is not family, but still is that kind of important to the woman as family would be. So for every organ in the body, there's a reason that it's there. And when you find that reason and touch on it, that's when healing begins. True healing has to begin there. Healing does not happen because of the treatments or a good diet or detoxification or that kind of stuff. Those are important, that's to be sure, but that does not lead to healing.
Oh, this is getting interesting now. So let me ask you this: if somebody comes to you and they have, let's say, have breast cancer, for this to be successful in terms of their survival, they're going to make some major gains in understanding their own disorder. How tough is it to get over this first hump? It looks like to me to be the first hump. They got to come to grips with these emotional components. And can it be done easily? Or let me ask you this: do you require that the patient actually come out there to Arizona and be with you? Could they do this wherever they happen to be, through readings or through? Fill me in on this. How do they make that big jump? To me, it's an awful big one.
Yeah, well, the Chinese, I've heard, have this kind of a saying that journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Well, this is the first step to acknowledge what's happening inside and where this is coming from. You have to bring light to where there's areas of darkness. And whenever we get sick like this and we develop a cancer, there's going to be something that you're trying to hide. And it's almost always a subconscious process. And what that means is that you're not really aware of it. And you mentioned the breast cancer, so let's pursue that. A woman doesn't sit around and think, well, gee, I've got a problem with the children. I think we'll grow a tumor in my breast. It doesn't work that way. It's a subconscious thing. The problem exists, and because it exists and she doesn't know what to do about it, her body will automatically do that, and that has to do with the interpretation thing. So if we understand the reason and the purpose for a body part and functions, and there's digestive reasons, and there's breathing, and there's kidneys, and there's reproduction. In this case, the breast is nurturing. Well, you nurture the family, and that's what women do, and that's what breast represents. So the breast represents nurturing of the children. Or, and this is another possibility, the woman is the child, and she has an issue with parents, her mother. That's more rare, because most of the time it has to do with children. So when I hear of somebody, and I got a patient that is a breast cancer, and I'll ask, well, how are the children, what are their ages, and how is their state of health? And I have yet to find a situation where there isn't somebody that's got a child in some kind of trouble. And trouble means not the kind of stress that you deal with from day to day in family relationship issues. Trouble means that this person, one of the children, is seriously, their mother is unable to protect is probably the best way to express that. They can't protect and nurture and guide the child in the direction they think they should go. And that common examples might be, and I've seen this a number of times, where a child is incarcerated, for example, in jail, or a child is ostracized from the family, or for some reason the child has died. I can't imagine a greater grief on the planet than the loss of a child.
No, nor can I.
Probably can deal with that, and others interpret it in such a way that it's my fault, I let it happen, I wasn't there to protect them. And subconsciously it becomes the kind of stress that develops into a cancer.
And in that case, the breast is the target that usually is going to express that particular conflict.
Yes, exactly so.
Is it possible, or how easy or difficult would it be if you don't get over this first hurdle? To me, this is the first hurdle, right? If you don't get over this first hurdle, you may not be able to get to the second and the third hurdle. This is the big one. And if you approach the people that come under your care, how successful is this to be able to broach the first hurdle?
Well, I'll grant you that this first hurdle, as you referred to, that first step of the 1,000-mile journey, is the most difficult.
It is, huh?
Most challenging thing for people to get over, because you have to open that part of the subconscious and look at it and bring light to a place that's been dark. And that is not an easy thing for most people to do. And I think the reason for that is just society and the way we're brought up. We have certain expectations. You expect that you're supposed to be polite with somebody who's maybe rude to you. It's not okay to fight or call names. We'll expand that a little bit, and we begin to have social expectations upon each other, and we think we're supposed to react in certain ways to certain conditions. And when you do, that's when you develop these tumors. But it becomes a subconscious process. So now we have to turn a light on in a place where it's been dark, and that is not an easy thing for people to do. However, and almost uniformly, and I keep a box of Kleenex on my desk just for this purpose, when I touch on what it is, and people say, oh my God, how did you know? And then they break down and cry. And that is the first step toward healing, because we know we've touched on it. When we can open that door and begin to bring some light, and the patient, my client, becomes aware of that and knows that I've touched on it, then they begin to open up. The other side of the coin is they deny it, although I know I'm right, and those people don't heal so well.
If they deny it, to deny it means that you really lock yourself up to possibly never getting well, huh?
Yeah, exactly so.
Wow.
Much of the time when you get into this is why fighting doesn't work. The fight has to do with the cancer, the tumor. We've got to get rid of it. We've got to kill it. We've got to radiate it to death, or chemotherapy it away, or to cut it off, or surgery, or something. Well, that does nothing to address the reason, the subconscious reason, and the stress that's in your life. So what happens is now maybe you cut your breast off with a mastectomy. Well, still the reason for the nurturing stress is still there, which means your mind is going to tell the brain to look for somewhere in the body to grow tumors. Now you've got tumors growing somewhere else. But the driving force is still there. It has to be reversed for healing to happen.
Wow, that's
That's a great concept by itself.
Well, what a great way to look at this. And you have a history now. You've been working in the cancer realm long enough to see that thing take place in front of you so often. That box of Kleenex, as long as you're draining the boxes, I'm getting the feeling that you're pretty successful. So what is your Kleenex tab a month out there in Arizona? To me, that would be the actual measure of your success, because without to get over that first hurdle, you'll never get to the others. Why don't we do this, Reverend Dr. Schwengel? Take a short break. When we come back, I want you to switch some gears a bit, because I wouldn't want the hour to go by to talk about the second, the third, and fourth hurdle, where you say that there are natural herbs, natural substances that end up being able to get the body back in homeostatic balance once again, and in so doing, rid yourself of those tumors. Can we get into that area when we return?
You betcha.
And when we get back, if there's any websites or any information that you want to give our listeners to jot down, I'm going to give you that opportunity firsthand. Okay, Doc?
Okay.
All right, we're with Dr. Charles Schwengel, Reverend Dr. Charles Schwengel. Are you getting the picture here, folks? What a great concept he's bringing you today. We'll be right back with more on our return. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. Here in a Wednesday morning version of the show, in Top Doc Summer Mode, we got the 20 top alternative doctors from the country coming to visit with you, listeners, this summer. And boy, there's no finer example of how unique these doctors are than our special guest today. His name is Dr. Charles Schwengel. He is a doctor of pastoral science and medicine. You now know why. And we've been talking about how it is that you conquer cancer or do it a la naturel. And we've gotten to that first hurdle. Dr. Schwengel, are you with us still, my friend?
I'm here.
Now, I wanted to ask you, and I did off air, and I think it's really appropriate to maybe hit this just a moment. I felt that whenever you have such a difficult hurdle to surmount, that really takes a lot of one-on-one, face-to-face time. And I was shocked to find out that absolutely isn't really what's required. Could you tell my listeners how it is that you can accomplish this so that people listening to me today don't have to go all the way up to Arizona? How's it done?
Well, we're all accustomed to the idea that you have to go to the doctor. The doctor does what he does to you, with you, because you're there, like that. There is a way of doing the evaluations that I do through the mail. You don't have to come and
through the mail. How so, doctor?
What I do need is a sample of yourself. And the way that's done is with a Q-tip or something. Your cotton tip swab is really how we should say that. You take the cotton tip swab and scrub the inside of your cheeks just like you would do with you see it on the crime scene shows. I collect some of the cells, which contains the DNA from the person. And you mail that to me. And I have a sophisticated computer system that I can evaluate using that cotton tip swab with the DNA on it. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. The computer system I have programmed in such a way that I can test for why the cancer is there and what products are going to be the best that your body will respond to the best to help get over it. And maybe we'll talk about why it is that certain products work the way they do. So we had talked a little while ago about the stress and about different brain levels, how it controls different body parts. Well, I can test for that. Do you have the kind of stress that's nurturing for the family? Or do you have the kind of stress that's anger? And I can even tell what kind of anger or what kind of nurturing stress it might be. And when I know that, and this is probably the greatest secret we can talk about, we can talk to the mind through homeopathic medicines. And that's what alternative medicine is really based on, is homeopathy. Homeopathy is an old method of healing, many hundreds of years. And the reason it works the way it does, mostly, is that it talks to the mind. Well, the mind controls the body. So if you can heal the mind, then healing of the body is going to have to follow. It's the most natural thing there is. So, to put the pieces together, you send me the cheek swab sample on the Q-tip, or the cotton swab tip, with the DNA. And I put that on my computer, and I determine what the problem is, where it is, and why it's there. Now I can make a homeopathic medicine I send back to the patient who talks to the mind that helps open up these dark spots and brings in some light. And because of that, healing can happen.
That first hurdle can be surmounted from a long distance away because you get a DNA sample from the individual. And I think you said it when we were off air. It's like the person is sitting in front of you. Didn't you say it that way to me?
Exactly.
Power.
Have a sample of the person in front of me is just as if the person is sitting here themselves.
That is extremely powerful. Well, could you take a moment? Our listeners out there, I'm sure, are very intrigued, and there may be some suffering or know someone suffering from one of these natural evolutions, what we call cancer. How is it people can learn more about what you do and how to do it through either websites or phone numbers? Please take the moment, whatever amount of time you need to get that across.
Well, the first thing to do is to look at our website. It's called Rhythm of Life, and begin to get some information and really be sure that what I do is right for you. So the website name of that's www. It's called Rhythm of Life, RHYTHM, rhythmoflife.com. And there you'll find an introduction to I'm going to use this word. It's called salvestrols, and maybe in a moment we can talk about what that means. In addition to that, there is the registration for this thing called the Pastoral Medical Association, because you need to be a member of that in order to participate in the kind of therapies we do.
Correct, yes.
Membership is free, and it's for life until you change it. It's a very private, a very secure thing, and you just sign up for it. That's all that it takes.
And now you got the membership, and so right. The medical board issue is no longer an issue between this individual and you, because as a pastor, you're allowed to work under the rubric that you explained right at the beginning of the show, correct?
Yes, exactly so. And that membership and the ability to do the things has been protected by laws and as far up as the Supreme Court, going back for a couple hundred years. So it's a well-established and well-protected thing.
Outstanding. Okay, and besides the website, any other, you want them to start there, and then from there, there'll just be a natural course of events, or any other information you want to give about any phone numbers you want them to have? You want them to go to that website?
Well, the website's the first thing. You should read that and get a little bit of background so that I know you've been there and we can talk about it.
Okay.
Because first time when people call me, I'll ask them that I've been to the website. If you haven't, then that's what you should do. And the contact information is there.
Good.
Telephone number, let me give you that.
Okay.
Area code 480-668-1448. It leads right to my desk in the office, and most of the time you should leave a message. And then I can get back to you and discuss the situation and the needs. Something that is kind of interesting about cancers is that it's not an emergency, although most people see it in their life that way. What I'm saying is it isn't like you have to start fighting it right now or it's too late. That's not true. We have a little bit of time to be able to send a sample back and forth in the mail and do the registration process and such it isn't like it has to be done right now or else.
Okay.
So I don't mind taking a few days to make the whole process work.
All right.
Now, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to not allow, because we've got probably about 7 minutes left. I wouldn't like to leave you today without allowing you to talk somewhat about these natural products and the phytonutrients, in particular something you call salvestrols, because they actually do play a large role in the ultimate correction of these stresses. Could you spend a little moment or two on that one?
Well, we know that good foods are good for us, and everybody, including Mother, has been telling us that since many, many years ago. But there's a small group of scientists that work out of England and out of Vancouver, British Columbia, that have come up with why exactly that happens. And they've put a great deal of work and research into it, and what they find is that there are components in natural foods, and I'm talking about herbs mostly, the herbs that have the healing ability. So they put a word to it, and that word is salvestrol. And that's how we call it that. And that's pretty recent stuff. It's only a few years old, and most doctors, most scientists don't know. They haven't, this kind of thing hasn't been happening long enough. What that means is like this. There are components in the natural whole foods that as they are nurturing for the healthy cells and make you stronger, when you have cancer cells develop an enzyme inside them. Well, the enzyme is kind of inactive until it gets exposed to the natural food component called salvestrol. So the salvestrol in the natural foods affects the enzyme inside the cancer cells. And when that enzyme gets turned on, it causes the cancer cell to recycle itself. The term for that is called programmed cell death. Well, wouldn't you like to have the cancer cells die off? Of course you would. And to do it naturally, in a recycling kind of way, is the best way there is.
And apoptosis.
That's the word, apoptosis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the medical term for this programmed cell death. So you can stimulate that through nature's herbs. I don't know how to do that medically, but I definitely know how to do it naturally.
Well said, huh? You're never going to find that in a chemical. It's got to come from nature. Wouldn't you say that?
It's a natural process.
It's that natural. It came a full 360 degrees. We started out using the word cancer as a natural process. Lo and behold, only natural substances with natural salvestrols can correct the naturally occurring enzymes. It's this vicious this circle, and it's a tightly knit circle, but it forms such a neat package that I think you turn my switch on, Doctor. And that sometimes is difficult to do. But I'm lit. I'm lit up. It's 60 watt at least right now, and I think my listeners may be even further than I am down the road. What a wonderful job putting this together. And I really feel that there'll be some people from the Pittsburgh area, Western Pennsylvania, who are actually going to contact you, going through this right now, seeing how unsuccessful maybe that fight is, and maybe realizing the futility of the fight, because it truly is a futile exercise, is it not?
The fight is futile. That's a good way to say that.
Absolutely.
There's something I would like to say about the salvestrol idea is that I have a way of measuring points, and I like to call it points per day. And that depends how much of these products should you be taking and how many points per day. And it starts out about 15,000 points per day. And that has to do with a tea. I put together an herbal tea complex. It's got about 15,000 points in a day's time. And then if you take all the pills, that has to do with the healing, we can increase that to over 200,000 points per day. And that depends on each person's need, how advanced their cancer is, or how many pills in a day are you willing to take. So there's quite a wide range, and that's how we measure how much of what kinds of things you should have. It's by how many points, and of course you want to watch. The Western medicine component does a wonderful job at diagnostics. So we take advantage of that and want to keep track of the tumor, look at the blood test or look at some imaging or whatever it takes to measure progress. So I'm all for the diagnostics, but I draw the line at treatment. Let's turn to nature for treatment.
how many points, now that you've run in that new concept, do you find that 200,000 was the number you threw out there, on a daily basis, how many points does a normal cancer, I know this is a bad way of putting it, but just to give me an idea, where's your normal patient fall in line with how many points of these herbal substances that they're going to require a day?
Well, the best way is to start with a high number of points per day, high being 150 to 200,000 points. And after we see some progress in 2, 3, 4 months, then you can taper off, cut that in half and cut it in half again until you're at a maintenance level. The maintenance is more like the 15,000 points per day. And that just a matter of time. And of course, each person's time is different because the way each person handles their cancer is different.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure that answered your question.
No, it absolutely did. And the fact that the emphasis and really high numbers of points start at the beginning, and then you'll be able to assess, and as there's improvement, makes absolutely great sense to me.
Sure.
And that it certainly allows us to tidy this thing up. We are coming right to the end of the show. Let me just say this, Doctor, that I feel that there's going to be an invite to you. This one show that we have done is just opened up a can of worms that we need to not close. And I'm going to ask you your permission to come back on the show and maybe invite you to Pittsburgh. Would you come if I invited you?
Oh, sure.
I'm going to work on that, Doctor. I promise my listeners you're coming to town. We need to have you here, Doctor, to meet us face-to-face, even though we can be treated from far away. I got bongos in the background signaling our time out of here, meaning thank you so much, Dr. Schwengel, for allowing us to invade your morning. And there'll be more dialogue between you and I, good doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, what a guy. I'll talk to you on Friday. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with Dr. Charles Schwengel saying so long for AIM Impact on Your Health.